Craving Grace, Diamond Dogs, Book 2, Chapter 4, written by Ann Malley, narrated by Ann Malley, copyright 2022. The intercom buzzed in Sunrise Plaza Apartment 4B. Gracie stopped cold, before the one-liners cinching her tongue could enter the atmosphere. Her neighbors meant well, but being tagged as a domestic dispute the last time fate lobbed a rock at her way was humiliating. She didn't need another visit from the boys with badges, wondering why she was yelling at herself. Besides, a security detail malingered in the hallway, watching her, keeping her in check despite the dressing down that she hoped would send them packing. Fury bubbled beneath her skin, but heaven hovered in a pizza box. The buzzing told her that delivery was only moments away. Melted cheese is right up there with clean sheets and caffeine. She spoke her truth to the Hulk. The life-size poster of the Marvel hero comic that sprouted muscles and a deep green tan whenever he was angry hung on the inside of her closet. The buzzer struck again. Gracie shimmied into yoga pants she'd shucked earlier to take a quick shower. Delivery never came this fast, but she wouldn't argue. Being angry all the time was taking its toll. She regretted her hissy fit with Sanchez almost as much as the foot plant with Jay. Did Gracie want to get physical with him? Yes. Should she have made contact with Jay? Absolutely not. She'd suffered enough over the thin line between love and hate. That was Danny's favorite tease whenever he caught Gracie ogling his best friend, or whenever his little sister was in the way. But Gracie did not love Jay. She never loved Jay. She'd been a victim of hormones like every other person on the planet. And now? She was overreacting, but being shunted to a convenient corner had that effect on a woman. Jay, despite all his training, had no clue what had ticked her off. He was too busy helping her. A curse burst past her thinned lips despite her resolution to break the swearing habit. Failing is my chief virtue, she whispered in the aftermath. Thankfully, her silent green confessor wouldn't assign her any penance. She could, though. She should. No barrage of prayers this time. A conscious effort to withhold her reactions no matter what would suit her purpose. That and seizing the upper hand at every opportunity. No more squishy feelings. The alternative, giving way to baits and barbs, invited chaos by letting Jay into her head. Gracie almost resented his saving her life for all the conflict it had created. With a firm purpose of amendment against future swearing, she tucked those thoughts away and opted for logic. The FBI did not want her. Okay, there were plenty of other agencies, the CIA, the DIA, the NSA. She had sent out feelers. Gracie tugged on a tank top. The ribbing made her look more buff than she felt. Shut up and say thank you may be Sanchez's motto, but taking the heat to keep the family together was Gracie's main mission. That meant long-term employment, not a payoff. The buzzer sounded again, deliciously raspy. Be right there! She wriggled into a full fur flip-flop set and made for the living room, grabbing her purse along the way. She would pay for the pizza. Tips, however, were based on personality. Thoughts of Clive softened her, along with fresh memories of schlepping her share of fast food during high school. Rock bottom hadn't laid claim on her yet, though. No thanks to you, Jay Sykes, she muttered. With a head shake, she refocused on food, pressed the button beneath the circular metal grate fixed beside the door front, and rumbled, "Yeah." "Pizza!" The one-word answer was more of a bark, but whatever. Bad days weren't Gracie's private property. She keyed the man into the building. Framed photos of her brother in happier times, and those of 5-year-old Logan, her nephew, and his sister Emma, not quite a year old, drew her back to what mattered. Gracie kept the wedding photo of Danny and Liz. They weren't done as a couple, not as far as Gracie was concerned. She loved her family. She believed in them, even if that only amounted to the pictures at present. Danny would heal. He had to heal. When a knock sounded, she wiped damp palms down her pants and opened the door. A pizza box zoomed forward at her, at eye level. "That was fast," she said, staggering back. "Hold up a little, would you?" Jay's voice curdled any hope of hot dairy bliss. "You want a cold pizza?" Gracie flung her purse toward the couch, then snatched the box. "Give Give me those breadsticks and get lost. Hungry, eh? No duh. She lunged for the foil bonus bag, dangling in his grip. The opportunity to find out what happened at his morning's meeting was the real gift, she realized, despite heartburn. Her resolution demanded that she take advantage. The price of that advantage? Smug Sykes. In her home. But not if she maintained herself in her head. She left off grabbing. Whatever Jay told her, she could take to another agency. Control was not beyond her. What good was a self-imposed penance if she never put herself to the test? With luck, Gracie wouldn't have to tell her client that Tig had sidelined her. Jay's blinding smile on would mean that the special agent in charge had reconsidered her position. Gracie could forgive and forget. She'd have to learn sometime. You have some nerve coming here, she said anyway. I do, he said. I mean, that didn't come out right, he sputtered. I did everything possible to make your case with Sanchez. You know that, right? Jay invited himself in and set the breadsticks on the entry table while a big nothing took the place of any hope for Gracie's surprise. This was my chance to get into the bureau, she said. Now it's blown. There will be other cases, Gracie. She glowered over the pizza box. You shouldn't have talked to Sanchez. Tig thinks I have a babysitter now. Thankfully, her FBI keepers were maintaining a low profile in the hallway. Either that or you have a champion, Jay said. Do I look like I need a Sir Galahad? Sometimes, he answered yes. Okay, Galahad. She licked her lips and prayed for strength. Tell me why I was nixed from this investigation. Mansplaining had always been Jay's wheelhouse, so Gracie dredged a doe-eyed eagerness and the perfect pout. The expression had worked countless times when Gracie needed details about what Jay and Danny were really up to. Sometimes she told her dad about her tactics, sometimes not, but Gracie was on her own now. Jay, contrary to what Gracie hoped, may have come to wheedle information from her. Information Tig feared that Gracie may shop to another agency. Jay smiled too much for Gracie to tell, and that made her blood boil. Well, she balanced the pizza on the entry table. Tig believes you have a conflict of interest, Jay said, and it's not me. Make me sick, Sykes. Sorry, but I'm only the delivery man, he said without commenting on her sudden switch in demeanor. I'm not sure what Tig told you, but the consensus at the meeting was that you are conflicted. Your client, whoever he or she is now a person of interest. Thank you, Jan Verbecki. Gracie pinched the bridge of her nose. You know, there's no reason to suspect that my client is guilty of anything more than getting in Rana Capital's way. So what's the conflict? Undercover work is messy, he said. Agencies can get territorial. I am aware, thank you, she answered through gritted teeth. Why don't we sit and go over the whole thing? I'd like to help, he added. What? She answered, by taking what I say back to Tig? I'll pass, thank you. I wouldn't have talked to anyone, he said, if you filled me in. You communicate nothing, remember? Yeah, she answered, runs in the family. Reaction contorted Jay's handsome features. They were perfect despite the passing years and his time spent overseas, but Gracie knew he had scars. Jay's wounds weren't like Danny's, but internal bruising often ran deeper and took forever to heal, if it healed at all. Still, Jay said nothing untoward. He always had the perfect response to steeper guilt, but Gracie refused to engage with him. She was supposed to be strong, not apologetic. Please, he said, let's talk. He palmed his neck. I want to help. Empathy snatched at her insides. You mean you need to help me? Jay blamed himself for Danny's condition, mental and physical. The two friends had served in Iraq together long before Gracie's botched tour overseas. Danny had come home after a rigged accident scene that targeted first responders. Jay remained in the thick of things, making grade and moving up the ranks. Gracie's brother couldn't handle the shift in status. Danny had always been the handsome one of the two friends, the winner. That's what Danny said after he'd put a ring on Liz's finger, but it was Jay's excess guilt that set Danny off. Danny wanted none of Jay's sympathy, and certainly not the pity that followed with sandstorm force. Gracie felt the same, and yet she couldn't help tightness in her chest. Shall I go? He asked her. Do what you want. Gracie shifted beneath his stare. Or maybe it was the weight of her own conscience that unsettled her. But only after you tell me what else happened this afternoon, then you can go. She could make a trade, a little mercy for information. Okay, that hostess, Kim, was brought in for further questioning, he said. She screamed the house down when she caught sight of me. She wants her dress shoes and her dress bag. I didn't ask her. If you have them handy, though, I'll courier the lot to Sanchez. The Bureau is putting Kim in protective custody until this Ronick thing is over. His eyes twinkled and Gracie waffled. She really did like Jay at one point and remembered that too well. Let's get things on the table, he said, so we can move forward, starting with pizza. I should kick you out, Gracie said. What have I done now? You've corrupted my delivery guy with tips. I can never match. That's what you did. He seemed happy enough to let me escort your cheese fix the rest of the way, despite cash incentives. Jay answered. The FBI guys in the hall didn't put up a fuss either, he said. Now, what else happened with Tig? What else is there? I was debriefed, then fired, Gracie said. Jay shut the door. Talk of other agencies? Gracie stiffened. Did Tig send you to smooth my feathers? There's no smoothing you, Gracie. I know. I have issues, she answered. Gracie kept her chin level, but Tig mentioned other agencies after she threatened me with obstruction of justice. She didn't name any agencies in specific, but told me not to burn her bridge. Ouch. Yeah, she wants this case and the glory that'll come with it, Gracie said. Gracie couldn't blame her. She blamed Fitz, even though that was silly. Gracie couldn't help it. New concern over her anonymous client was just a ruse, something to throw Jay off if he happened to stop by to deliver hot, gooey cheese pizza. The same go-to that Jay had introduced Gracie to when Danny's teasing had been too much, even for his best buddy. That's possible, he said. Yeah, but if you're suggesting I go elsewhere and have names, I'm open. She should be open, Gracie realized. She waited for Jay to say something. If he was working for Tig, he backpedaled, attempting to discover if Gracie had already contacted someone, maybe. Homeland Security, ONI, the CIA, even the State Department might hop on this, considering the international flavor of Rana's investment strategy. I'm thinking of cheese right now, he said. How about we eat? You should have bribed my delivery man for another pie. I'm eating this one. She shooed Jay from the box when her landline phone rang. That's probably Tig ready to say that she's sorry. Gracie hoped so, because burning that bridge was not what she wanted. Apologizing doesn't seem like her style, Jay said. It didn't seem like Tig's style. The phone kept ringing. Gracie would normally have let the machine handle it, but having Jay on the premises made that impossible. She gagged on a hot ball of what now, wishing that she hadn't cranked up the volume on her machine so she wouldn't have missed anything in the shower. Gracie wrung her hands. It's probably a client. I'll wait in the hall, Jay offered. 10 minutes? Gracie opened the door and handed him the foil bag. Enjoy. Gracie, pick up. Come on. Danny's agitation filled the small room. Don't make me come over there. I get it. Jay lifted his chin. His eyes were an instant wash of water at her unspoken warning to avoid the subject. But I miss him, Gracie. Tell him for me. Don't put me in the middle, Jay. Gracie had her own relationship with her brother to mend. Jay's brows met over his nose. Please, Gracie. Her heart moved, and more than moved, and Gracie reached deep for angry, seeking solace in anger, but found only Jay's misty gray eyes begging her. I'll see what I can do, she said. She would let Jay make amends by his helping her to get a new job. Danny and the kids needed Gracie working. She opened the pizza lid, eager for cheese. The heavenly scent, hot, gooey, and laden with tomato accents. It wafted up like a balm when a whining fly whipped in the hallway. Get down, Jay shouted. What are you doing? Sykes! Gracie dodged the one-eyed fly, a drone with a camera attachment. Jay rushed inside. Get down! He ripped the box from the table, swung, and flung the door shut. Gracie hit the floor. A rip of sound crashed through her consciousness. Jay begged God, instantly and without thinking. Gracie? A cloud of unknowing had consumed him. His arms and legs refused to move. His pulse skyrocketed, panic clawing at his insides. He glanced sideways. Sensation returned in painful prickles. He blinked to regain himself. Dust flicked off his lashes, in and out. He breathed and exhaled, focusing on what he could control. With a groan, he strained his head up off the carpet. Come on. He fisted his hands, tensing his thigh muscles to force a response. Gracie, he called again. The overblown hush chilled him. His own voice took on a surreal spike, the sound foreign, but Jay knew what to expect. He'd been blown up so many times, his astigmatism had disappeared. It didn't seem like it now, with the world rippling in and out. Still, even though the blast was far less than it could have been, there was no one cussing him out. Gracie, he yelled. Gracie, answer me. Quiet reigned. His heart sunk. Jay's insides melted. This could not be happening. Little Gracie, fair and feisty, loyal as a seasoned veteran with a chest full of medals, so filled with compassion that she had put herself last or not at all. It couldn't be. Muscles stinging, he rocked backward, grabbing the back of his head, then surged forward to gain his feet. Gracie had to be all right. He flung debris, chucking the hall table behind him to find her on the other side. There was no blood, no twisted bones or embedded projectiles that met his gaze. Her back lay flush against the rumpled couch cushions. She was lying so still. He dropped to his knees and felt for her pulse. Gracie, God, please answer me. Jay? Her voice was more mouthy than anything. It was a memory of what her voice sounded like while her lips moved and her eyes opened. You all right? He asked with exaggerated gestures. She touched his wrist, or was it the cross around her neck? I think so. I'm just deaf. Me too, said Jay when she put a hand to her ear. Message received. He leaned in to scoop her up, but she shook her head. I'll walk, she shouted with a wiggle of her middle and forefinger. He knew what she wanted to say. I've got you. He insisted. Jay needed to feel Gracie in his arms. No, she scowled, clutching at his forearm with an iron grip, and stood. No, I'm good. Gracie was good and brave, and Jay let go of the urge to cuddle her up. That drone equaled trouble, a skilled opposition with a mind to take Gracie out. Jay moved her swiftly toward the gaping exit, snatching up her purse along the way. My watch, she shouted, lifting her empty wrist. Leave it, Jay said. Jay, it's on my dresser. The sound of her voice came through. And if the curtains are open even a crack, you could be dead. Dead, Gracie, sniped. He growled now, louder than need be, even if their ears weren't ringing. Do you get that, Gracie? No second chances. Gone. You'd be gone. I cannot handle that. I won't. Okay, she mouthed the words. Thank you. Any time, he said. He brushed her tousled hair with his lips that signaled her to stay put while he checked the corridor. Gracie tucked her hair behind her ears and eyed the man that she had hated for so long. Shut up and say thank you may not be her way, but Jay deserved some slack. He deserved leeway to show concern without Gracie putting undue emphasis on what it meant. Whatever her shock-addled emotions may say, Jay's tenderness wasn't personal, but professional. He was always kind when the occasion warranted. She shifted behind the remaining wall, glass crackling beneath her fur slippers. Danny Snow, with his Special Forces beret, cocked like the broken picture frame, grinned up at her. Do not trust that guy, Danny had said the day it was taken. Jay's great for fun, and I love teasing you both, but that's where it ends. Words to live by, Gracie thought, but the photo was old, and so were her views. Maybe. She wasn't falling in love, but letting Jay express himself instead of believing he was something she'd been told to do. The door had taken the brunt of the explosion, thank goodness. Twisted metal, blown through the living room like a crazy kite. If not for Jay's fast action, Gracie would be dead. Sir Galahad had rescued her again. Jay waved her ahead. You all right? He asked the guard in the corridor. Fine. Only one of the agents stumbled up from the floor. Blood streaked his forehead. Where's your partner? Jay asked. He's downstairs. There was some altercation in the stairwell. Get her out of here, Sykes. Now. I'm sorry, he said to Gracie. It's not your fault, she answered, her ears still ringing. She turned to a quivering Mr. Lin peeking out of his apartment next door. Call 911. Sirens wailed by the time Jay led Gracie through the plaza's front foyer. People crowded the building. They looked straight up despite glaring sun. Jay made careful use of the building's canopied portico. He and Gracie slipped back to hide behind the main supports. Thankfully, the stairwell had been empty when they'd used it. Jay examined the opposite side of the street. Gracie crouched behind him. It wasn't by choice, but arguments would wait. Her protector had insisted the whole way out that she stay behind him. Follow my lead. Jay moved as if he planned to take a bullet for her. He would. Gracie knew it. The realization rattled her for so many reasons. But now was not the time to think or feel. Gracie still had a clear view of the scene ahead. A rideshare driver picked up a fare. Passers-by shaded their eyes and glanced up at the street for approaching emergency vehicles. Gracie winced at the glare of sunlight on a passing car. See anything? She asked Jay. Jay brushed dust off her shoulders. Only my rental car that's no longer an option. Whoever drowned us may be miles away, said Gracie. I'm just glad it wasn't a pizza box IED. I'd have caught that. Jay hit her with another hungry man once-over. I know, she said. Did you catch the camera on that drone? Oh, yeah. Jay turned to address a concerned woman with a bag of groceries. Yes, we're all right. Thank goodness, absolutely. Could you give us some space, please? She needs air, he said about Gracie. Of course, the woman replied. I'm so glad you're all right. Whoever sent that drone may have more on the way, more on their mind than murdering you, Jay said when they were alone. Like they want my client's name. Whoever was on the other end of that thing had access to who and what was in your living room. The video, however brief, can be reviewed again and again. The contents exploited for information you wouldn't dream possible. Okay, you would imagine it, but you get the idea. Gracie's head pulsed, but she nodded yes anyway. Come on, Jay said. Time to move. You look like you stepped out of a summer slasher film. So did he, Gracie thought. But she took the high road, refusing a comeback, and took the arm he offered. She gave her building a final glance over her shoulder. If Rebecca's bosses went to such trouble, they likely have a handle on whatever room you've rented, Jay. A figure took shape in the crowd. He was muscled and familiar, then disappeared amid neighbors and people that Gracie saw every day. Who was that? Jay asked. Nothing. Gracie shook off paranoia. I saw someone. Someone looking at me, that's all. People are wondering what happened, Jay said, picking debris off of her hair. Gracie flapped at his hand. A new resolution to keep things professional was firmly planted. So, where do we go now? She asked. Emergency teams exited their vehicles in front of the plaza. Any trust Gracie may have had evaporated thanks to Danny's injury and her own intelligence training. Accidents could be staged. First responders could be targets or perps. In silence, she followed Jay as they navigated away from the chaos, taking a shaded driveway between Gracie's apartment and the adjacent building. When they popped back onto the street, in the opposite direction of the sirens, the flashing lights seemed far away. So did perfect hearing. I hope my other FBI guy is okay, she said. I do too. I'll be making a call, Jay said. The FBI isn't the only game in town, and Tig Sanchez obviously cannot protect you. I will. I promise, Gracie. Jay's rough declaration had her seeing stars, so Gracie drove into military mode. You cannot use your phone. Underworld operators embed service providers with mills all the time. Are you worried about me? He asked. Don't flatter yourself, Sykes. I'm worried about me. Gracie would have to watch her words. But so long as you're not using your cell phone or taking me to your place, I'm good. I'm also starving. You exploded my pizza. I'll feed you, he said. Jay jerked his head forward, then jogged on until they hit a dollar store. Double doors whooshed open to a blast of cool heaven. Gracie snatched a handbasket. She bypassed the practical and plunged straight onto sweets and treats while Jay checked out burner phones at the front counter. Twinkies should do it, and a bag of gummy worms. She loved gummy worms. She would love not having to deal with resurgent teenaged crushes either. Not that Gracie was hankering after Jay. That was not happening, even if a tube of lip gloss absolutely was. She added the fruity indulgence to her basket and told her conscience to stuff it. The memory of Jay's impersonal kiss lingered, despite her wishes. Recollection of Jay's fierce tenderness remained with Gracie too. That was far more potent. imprint of his calloused hands and his bereft eyes, smoldering gray, would stay with her no matter what happened. Grabbing 2 broomstick skirts, a few colored tees, and a man's Hawaiian button-down size XXL on a circular display, Gracie rejoined Jay at the checkout. "This should tide me over." She set basket and all on the counter. "The hibiscus nightmare is for you," she said. "Girlfriend got the munchies?" the tatted cashier asked. "Could you toss in a pair of those slip-on shoes, the smallest you've got?" Jay pointed toward the display at the far end of the counter. "I dig your ink," he said. "The scroll work surrounding that wolf's head is good." "Impressive. Where did you get it done?" The cashier lifted a penciled brow. "Broken Dagger on South Decatur." "Great place. I got my tat there too. See?" Gracie flashed her ankle. "Nice," the cashier said. "Be nice too," said Jay. "Thanks." Gracie lowered her voice when the woman went for the shoes. "Are you always like that?" "Kind?" he asked. "A flirt," Gracie qualified. She spun towards the entrance. "I can get my own shoes, thank you." She should have done that. But then Gracie wouldn't have seen the Chippendale dancer. It was the same man she'd spotted outside her apartment building minutes ago, hands flat against the window pane. The Chippendale stared at Gracie while her stomach hit the floor.